All right, well, it is 10:15, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for taking some time with me this morning and for joining the first of two sessions specific to ROA this year at this year's virtual convention. Today's topic is leveraging data, how to use ROA Insights to benefit your campus. And so there's a wide range of interaction with the ROA Insights tool across our membership. So over the course of the next 30 to 40 minutes, my goal is to expand upon some of the focuses of the ROA team itself and how we're moving ROA forward to benefit you all, and then also arm you with enough experience, those that might be new to the tool, that you feel comfortable diving into the tool, understanding what you're seeing, how to navigate it, how it works, so that you can make decisions for your campus and the ultimate purpose of the ROA Insights tool itself. So I'm going to start it off with a little bit of just background on how we got to where we are. And I do this regularly when I present on ROA because I think it's important to understand the evolution of what we've done with Insights and ROA generally speaking. So ROA data collection itself dates back, as far as I think the fall of 2017. And that summer, prior to collecting all that data, I interviewed a number of you to understand pain points and what are some of the business decisions you're having to make as collegiate athletic administrators. And so that fall, we worked with 8 schools. They gave us multiple years of data. We presented that stuff at convention. It was really cool, I think, and it really just launched what we've done in ROA Insights to date. That next year, we expanded to 40 pilot schools and officially launched our tool, ROA Insights, that summer of 2019. And then, of course, this past year, ROA Insights fully open to all 250 members due to everyone submitting data through the year-end report process. I do want to say just a thank you for everyone. I know this last year has been a unique one and a crazy one at times, and us throwing a new year-end reporting mechanism at you could have caused some challenges for your campus, but I always appreciate the grace and the willingness to do what we need to do in the NAIA. So I applaud you for helping us get through that in this first year. And every person that has done this previously to this last year has always said that, the first year is always the hardest as you're understanding definitions and things like that. So let's talk about what we're doing from a benefit standpoint. So since we've started ROA, the idea was to strengthen our association through data. It's that concept of a rising tide lifts all boats. And so when we started to explore how we go about this, we weren't finding anything specific to small college athletics. So we decided to go down this path ourselves. And where we've gotten to is we've got the ROA Insights tool that is available to help you maximize the business of your athletics department. So maximize your ROA. And it's a free tool to our members, and it allows you to leverage simple and consistent calculations for comparing yourself and just self-reflection of your institution and its performance in a number of different metrics across all NAIA institutions. It helps deliver informed decision makings by providing, like I mentioned, data and resources for you in the areas of athletic funding, addition and subtraction of sports, roster sizes, discount rates, financial aid, etc. And lastly, it's intended to save you time. The centralization and the convenient online portal is what we're building, or what we've built to give you access to this information. And again, so much of this hinges upon your support as membership, and we greatly thank you for that as well. The ROA team itself, over the course of about the last 9 or 10 months, has really been focused in 3 areas. And Jim mentioned these in his State of the Association yesterday a little bit. But the first is experience. We want to provide you a tool that is easy to use and understand. So over the course of the winter, we took what was kind of our initial beta Insights product and conducted interviews with a number of presidents and athletic directors, CFOs, even a couple vice presidents of enrollment to get in the tool and understand how intuitive it is, how easy it is to navigate. Is it relatively simple to understand what you're seeing there? And we got a great amount of feedback from that group. Some of it very constructive feedback, and that we've been able to implement a good chunk of that feedback, and we'll continue to evolve the tool with this focus in mind, this end user experience in mind. Because at the end of the day, this tool is intended for you all and for your benefit. And so that's a big time number one focus for us. One key component of this experience area is the establishment of a formal and consistent member feedback process. In the past, as we've been building this tool, we've done a lot of it through small group work, the advisory committee that we have, and some things like that. But we want to expand upon that to have to basically cast a bigger net to better understand how it can positively impact and what we need to do to continue to make it relevant for your campus. The next area is adoption. We want Insights to be more than a tool to just complete your year-end report. And so we're going to be actively communicating with you on how you can leverage the tool to generate value over the course of the next weeks, months, years. It's a key part of our strategic plan that Lynn will talk about on Thursday. That's one of the key tactics for us in the ROA pillar is active communication to our members so that we can help you leverage the value and generate more value within the tool. And the last piece, and one that I'm extremely excited about, is the area of insights. And Jim mentioned it yesterday in the Q&A with Meg. We are committed to resourcing the area of analytics and research in a greater way than what we have done to date. And a good reason for that is that we're now at the point that it makes sense to do that we can start drawing or looking at interesting questions and start to see if we can find areas that matter and things like that, those types of key performance indicators and such. We're at a point where we can do that now because we have full membership within the tool. We played around with some of this earlier on, and then this past spring we outsourced a specific resource to help us with this area. I don't know if he's on the call or not, but Pete from Sterling, I think you are my new best friend. So I hope you were looking for a new best friend with the question you asked Jim about resourcing in this area, because I reminded Jim what he said yesterday too. But anyway, Insights, we have a plan for quarterly research releases on key topics and key areas of focus for us. And we want that research driven by questions that the membership has. So reach out to me, reach out to Lynn, who's a member of the ROA team as well, or in communications with Jim. We want research focused in relevant areas because that's what makes it valuable. So I'd love to hear your ideas along those lines. We have our running list internally that was helped built by the advisory committee and some others, but we want to evolve this area and really the tool generally with what's relevant in the business of higher ed. All right, let's get into the meat of it, and let's get into Insights, which is what we're here for. So generally speaking, Insights is divided into 4 primary buckets. The first of which is data collection. This is obviously the area where you conduct your year-end report fulfillment and things like that. I'm not really going to focus any on that specific area today because we have a whole session dedicated to it on Thursday. I believe it's also at 10 a.m. That we'll talk about the common mistakes I've seen and questions and answers around different definitions and stuff like that. So I'll go into that on Thursday. The other section is the institution area. And what this area within the tool does is it provides you a self-reflection of the information you provided in the data. So it provides you a level of information and data elements back specific to your institution, including things like your equivalency report from the year-end report, summaries of financial aid over time, and net returns and things like that. The next area, the third kind of bucket within the ROA Insights tool, is the comparison area. Personally, this is my favorite area of the tool. It's the area that I find that I enjoy playing around in the most, and seeing looking at different sports or different variables across different groups of institutions. Because what it allows you to do, and you'll see it in a couple minutes, is it allows you to filter to a group of comparable institutions. I call them like institutions, based on enrollment size, cost of attendance, number of sports, conference, specific sport, etc. And the last area is the calculators area. And what we have there is we've got a very simple tool that allows you to adjust a couple parameters, and you can see what an anticipated impact would be for your campus. Full transparency about the calculator area. I think the calculator area in its current form is most beneficial and most helpful if you're isolating a singular sport. You can use it obviously to evaluate the entire athletics department, but I think focusing it on a smaller subset is what makes it most valuable. The other thing I think about this calculator section is I also think it's an area that as I envision and think about, and we talk about the product roadmap for ROA Insights, I think this is a big area of opportunity for us when it comes to providing a unique experience for our members when it comes to more forward-thinking type of analysis and metrics. Currently, you see a reflection of the past in the tool, and this is a space where we can look at things moving forward. Okay, so let's get into the fun stuff. So what I've done is I've outlined 4 scenarios that I'll walk you through live in the tool, and they're fairly simple, but the intention is to give those that are new to the tool an understanding of how to move around in it, what they're seeing, and what some of the definitions mean. I know we've got a few of the people that I call power users on this call. Like I saw Jesse Godding's name come in. He's been one of our pilot folks from the get-go, and he has actually actively used this tool to make decisions for his campus. And so he's one that if you want a membership perspective, I'm just offering him up to visit with him as well about how he uses the tool also. But so this is going to be a little bit simpler than maybe some of the stuff Jesse does, but it will give you kind of an introduction to what you can see and how you navigate it. So first, most basic question, what's my ROA and how is it calculated? All right, so what you're seeing now on your screen is the Insights tool. And so this is my example university, NAIA Private University 2. And this is what you would see as an athletic director when you log into the tool. For those that have been in the past, you'll notice we've revamped the home screen to make it more useful and more intuitive than what it was before. You'll see that the buckets at the top are the different sections I mentioned previously. One thing I forgot to mention at the onset is if you've got questions or comments, please add them in the chat. Lynn will help me address some of those here as we kind of move through the presentation, and I'll save a lot of them for the end itself. But so back to the question at hand, what is my ROA and how is it calculated? So for NAIA Private University 2, you can actually see what your ROA is for that given year on the home screen. We use the term net return. So it's the net ROA for your institution for that given year. And what we do in Insights and what we do with the data that you collect is we provide you an operational analysis of the athletic department. So it looks at athletics as a true microcosm, assuming that all revenues and all expenses attributed to sport kind of live within this bucket. And so that what it does is it then provides you a perspective on the impact that athletics is having for your greater campus. So again, NAIA Private University 2 has an overall net return of $5.26 million in the 1920 academic year. You can also access this a number of different ways. So the easiest way is go to institution and dashboard. And what this page will load is it'll load the overall, your overall athletic department summary page. And I apologize, sometimes when I'm screen sharing, it loads a little slow, but it looks like it's working pretty well now. And on this page, you see filtered for the 1920 year, your net return again, 5.26 million. You can hover your cursor over that current year and you can see that what was the actual increase from one year to the next, or decrease in some cases. You see that the change from the previous year was about 15%. And when you, like I said, when you hover, you can see, okay, in 18-19, it was about 4.57. Now it's 5.26. You can also see your net return per student for this example university. It was about 10,000 per student. And then you can start to kind of ask some questions, as a lot of these metrics are intertwined. Okay, why did we see a 15% increase in net return? Well, we increased the student athlete population 2%. We decreased sport expenses 1.5% or 1.25%. We decreased the sport expense per student about 4% because we added more students. Although we did increase the average financial aid per student, and there was the discount rate did slightly increase. Okay, so that's where you would see your net return, and net return is also your ROA. This metric is throughout the platform. You'll see it all over, but we haven't answered the second half of that question, which is how is it defined? And that's where you see in the Help Center, we've got areas for definitions and frequently asked questions. We also have contact support, which gets you to me. And we also have training materials. Those are mostly focused to date on data submission. But you can see we pull out some of the most common high-level definitions. There's also the complete glossary. And you can see, okay, for net return, it's your tuition, room, and board revenue plus sport revenues minus expenses, minus financial aid and sport expenses. So that's the high-level calculation for that. And then obviously net return per student is that same equation divided by your number of students. So in the definitions area, in the Help Center, we provide the general calculation for how each of these metrics is created. All right. So we've answered what is my ROA and how is it calculated? 5.26 million for NAIA Private University 2. Okay, big one for our athletic directors. Where is my year-end report? And when I say year-end report, I mean, remember the old PDFs you used to get out of NAIA Help? Where do I go to see my equivalencies dashboard? To find that, you can find it in a couple different places. So you can find it in the home area. We've actually got a quick link to it here at the bottom, year-end financial aid report. But to take you the long route, you go into the dashboard, again, because this is an institutionally focused report. You go into the dashboard and you would select the report type at the top and find your year-end financial aid report. And what this does is it loads this dashboard, and you can see a number of different things on the screen. And I'm going to actually enlarge it some too, so it's a little easier to read. It pops a little small on my monitor. So what you see is you see some general information at the top, what your cost of attendance was, or what your average cost of attendance is as we kind of move forward into the new variable tuition rate rules. You see how many varsity players you have. You see how many players that were on the varsity squad but didn't meet the definition of countable. Those are our non-competing varsity people. And then you see the total amount of countable aid that you gave in a given year. For this school, it was 4.66 million. The next area is you see truly like, okay, what was your limit after exemptions, before exemptions, number of varsity students, and the amount of countable aid, and the limit for that sport, the general NAIA limit. We conditionally format this area so you can just do a quick scan and see, okay, all my sports are in the green, we're within the limits. If there's a sport above the limit, then the field shows in red. It's a little easier, I think, if you filter this by a sport to look at the rest of this. So I'm going to pick on men's soccer. All the pages are filterable by sport within here. They're also filterable by gender. So if for some reason you wanted to isolate your women's sports or your men's sports, you could do that. So let's look specifically at men's soccer. The sport aid limit is 12. We were at 6.66, but we were buttoned up close to 12 prior to exemptions. The next thing you see is the financial aid summary area, where you see, okay, for that particular sport, how much did I give in each of the 5 different categories we collect, and then also what the percentage of the total pot is, and how that's broken out. And I'll show you an interesting look at this for this particular university here in a second that isn't necessarily completely tied to the year-end report, but I think it's something that we can show. Then you see your breakdown of aid that was exempted as part of our rules for exemptions. So you can see that, okay, they had $181,000 of aid exempted based on having highly academically performing continuing students. And then the last area is you see, okay, so we filtered by men's soccer. This is all of your men's soccer players that met the criteria to be considered countable. You see their ID, their total aid that they received, what tuition rate applied to that student, and what that student's cost of attendance is. Now we're looking at the 1920 submission, but what you'll see for this next year's submission, since we've changed how the financial aid rules work, the tuition category will impact their cost of attendance. You still could have a large number of students that have a very similar or the same cost of attendance. But for example, this online student wouldn't have the same cost of attendance as their traditional student in all likelihood. So you would see the cost of attendance would be variable for each individual. You see what exemption classification they applied to them. You see how much countable aid they received after exemptions. And then you see the percent at which their scholarshiping counts towards a full ride, basically. And all of these columns are filterable by highs or lows or whatever. We also have, and we don't see it here, I should have set up a better example to show some of the indicators, but if you would have an individual over 100%, it would also flag that line as red because you're not allowed to scholarship per our rules beyond the full cost of attendance. So that is your year-end report page. And since we're talking about financial aid a little bit, I wanted to show just the financial aid summary page. So what this page does is it allows you to look at men's soccer over the course of time and the amount and the percents of aid that you've given in that sport. Where I see this coming into play is when I was working at McPherson, we stacked scholarship at that time, and this is 10 years ago, so I hope I'm not giving away any trade secrets, but athletics was always seemed to be butting heads with the financial aid department when it came to our athletics discount rate, because we were attracting better academically performing students, and so they were getting higher academic scholarships, and we weren't doing a good enough job at the time adjusting our athletic scholarships to meet what the institutional discount goal is. And so you can see here that at least in NAIA private university too, from one year to the next, their academic aid increased significantly. And that would obviously have an impact on their discount rate because the other aid categories didn't fluctuate that dramatically. So for obvious reasons, the discount rate increases for that. But that provides some explanation as to why, and it provides you a nice visible way to see that. And if you're looking at this example again, 53% of their aid came in the academic category in 1920, where only 44% came in 1819. Okay, next question. How much return can I expect from adding a new sport? This is where we start to dive into my favorite area of the tool, which is the comparison area, because I think this is the section that is just the most fun to play around with. It's going to take a minute to load, so I'll kind of describe the page. So at the top, if you haven't played around a little bit, you'll see all your filters that are available, and then you'll see the statistics below those filters. This page sometimes can be slow loading. If you have problems with this page, let me know, because I'm continuing to work with our IT and our business intelligence folks to make the performance of this page much, much better. But it can get a little bogged down just because it's running so many calculations at the same time. Anyway, so what I've done is I went ahead and I preset some filters for NAIA private university so I could narrow down from the full 247 that are in Insights to date. So what I did is I set the enrollment to schools from, I believe it was 500 to 1,000 or 1,100. And I filtered it to private institutions because this example is a private school. So you will see, when you see the number of institutions pop up here in a second, you'll see that it shows 76 instead of the full 200. And the way you would do that is you select your filters and then click the Save Filters selection below, and it'll save your filters so that when you come back into the page, so if you like to specifically look at the Heart of America Athletic Conference or whatever, you can see that. So you can see I preset the enrollment to 500 to 1100 and private institutions. So we're looking at how much return can I expect from adding a new sport. So you see a lot of the same metrics on the screen, but what you can do is you can filter by sport. Once it pops up, I apologize, it's running a little slow as I screen share. So let's specifically pick women's lacrosse. So you select women's lacrosse. I don't have women's lacrosse at NAIA Private University, but what the page will do is it reloads your institution's information, goes to NA because you don't have the sport, but on the right-hand side in your comparable institutions, it will show you the experience in these metrics for that particular program. Amongst the schools that meet your other filtering criteria. So private institutions between 500 and 1100. So the page will show you what the average net return is, what the net return per student is. One thing that I think is extremely valuable is this expenses and the expenses per student. Sport expenses in this specific view include operational expenses, personnel expenses, postseason expenses, and there's one more, recruiting expenses. So I apologize if this is acting a little bogged down, but like I said, what it'll do is it blanks out your side of the screen and it provides you that information on the right-hand side in the comparables institution space. Usually it doesn't run quite this slow for me. So anyway, that's how you would go about looking at new sports. If you looked in the sport dropdown, you can see every sport that we collect data on within ROA. And so, like I said, it allows you to dive into sports you don't have if you select an individual of them. My last question, or my last scenario question was, how does my baseball team compare to my conference? And since this is still loading, I'll just kind of dive you into how it would work, and then it'll set you up to play with it on your own. In the conference list, once it loads, it'll show every conference in the NAIA. And no matter what conference you're in, you can see you can toggle to any conference in the NAIA. And so what you can do is you can select your conference. If you're in the Heart of America Athletic Conference, the Crossroads League, or whatever, and it filters all the information down to the members of that league. Okay, so now lacrosse has come through, women's lacrosse has come through. There's 10 institutions that meet my criteria, and this is what you could expect. You can see that we do have a startup program in here because they're showing 0 expenses and a little bit of revenue for the first year. But as you build it out, you will see more consistency in there. But you can see, like, okay, average discount rate for lacrosse is anywhere between 38 and 69%. Roster sizes are between 10 and 23, things like that. So if you wanted to filter by a particular conference, kind of diving back into the baseball thing, you can select any league in the association. That league that you select, your values will remain. If it's a league that you are in, then your percentile will show how you fit within that light group of institutions. If you are not a member of that league, you don't have a percentile because obviously you're not part of that group. But you will still be able to compare your values against the values of other schools within that conference. So I'll see if this will work a little bit faster for me. We'll look specifically at baseball. And then, but again, you kind of understand the general concept that if it'll blank out your percentile if you don't belong to that conference. In my example, assuming it would load fast enough, NAIA Private University, being a demo school, doesn't belong to a conference. So it would just blank out, period. Or not blank out, period. It would blank out the percentile values no matter what conference I selected. So let's see. I'll give it one last try to see if I could do this really quickly. But if you have this type of performance when you're not screen sharing and have a whole bunch of people online, let me know, because that's a problem we want to fix. But it's just being a little slow for me during the screen share. So, but that's kind of the last scenario, and that lets you dive into the comparison tool itself to see how you compare to neighboring conferences and other schools within your league. So that's going to take a second or two to load. I want to be able to make sure we've got time to get to some questions. But the last thing I can't stress enough before I jump into questions is this member feedback loop that we're going to kind of formalize and communicate to the group, I think is just so vitally important. I really enjoy talking with you about this and understanding how it's going to benefit you. That's a real passion for me when it comes to the work we're doing in ROA. So if you've got questions or you're seeing something weird in the system that you're trying to figure out, okay, how is this being calculated? Let me know. If you've got feedback on reports or things like that, call me, email me. This is my office phone, my direct line to my office. Many of you also have my cell phone number. Call or text that. I want to be accessible to be helpful to you all. So with that, I was going to try to keep it to 30 minutes. I'm a little bit over 30 minutes, but Lynn, do we have questions?
Yes, the chat box has been quite active.
Awesome.
We have 4 questions. The first one was chimed in by many conference commissioners. And the question is, many times they're asked to provide comparison data among member schools. Will commissioners have access to ROA Insights with the ability to produce data? And I think there were several comments about just comparison data with schools, et cetera, for the conference commissioners.
Yes. Yeah. Conference commissioners. Yes. That is part of our ongoing product roadmap when it comes to ROA Insights, is to develop a conference commissioner view to give you some of that information. What we're doing in the meantime, and I apologize for not advertising this better, is I know I've helped a number of conferences pull some of their general year-end reporting just in Excel spreadsheet versions to get them the content that they're needing or they're looking for their standard reporting. I know I worked with the Crossroads League, I believe the American Midwest Conference, the Wolverine Hoosier Athletic Conference, to pull them some of their kind of standard reporting to help kind of bridge that gap until we get everything integrated in the tool itself.
Okay, so second question is from Pete, your best friend.
Yeah.
Do only ADs have access to ROA Insights, or do FARs also have access?
Yeah, so initially access is given to presidents and athletic directors, and we can provide additional access just via request from the athletic department, and so I can help set up user accounts for those that need them. The intention is for this tool to be an administrative level tool. If you have coaches that serve in administrative roles, we could provide them that access, but I would look for the athletic director or the president to to give a thumbs up for that access, but we can provide that access.
Okay, there was a shout out for McPherson in the chat box. You'll see that later, Alan.
Yeah.
And then there was a question about, does the enrollment filter at the top refer to full undergraduate enrollment or just student athlete enrollment?
That is a great question. It does. That filter on the comparisons page is full undergraduate enrollment.
Okay. Sean Johnson is asking how to export reports out of ROA.
Yeah, good question, Sean. Currently, what the reports, there is a printable version of each of the different sections, and it only provides you a singular export. One report that I've had a lot of people ask about specifically is that year-end report, that equivalencies report. Currently, we don't have an export for that, but it is one of the things that we're looking to get added into the system, is to make it so that it's simpler than going to these printable reports, so that you can just export the dashboards in a easier way. And there's some technology coming out from Microsoft specific to the Power BI platform, which is the backend that runs our visuals. That's going to allow us to do that and make it a lot simpler than it currently is. So to Sean's question, yes and no, but more to come.
Okay, another one from Pete. Is there any discussion about adding a section in the data collection that would include winning percentage? I imagine in the grand scheme of data analysis, allowing an institution to see correlations between these different variables and the success of the team.
Yeah, Pete, we are best friends, because that is something we're actively thinking about is the integration of success into the tool so that you can, in some sense, it could be as simple as understanding what's the price tag for success in a certain sport. But it obviously can go a lot deeper than that too. So we've got, that is something we're talking about. I've got a president, I don't know if he's on it, Roger Drake. He and I talk about this regularly and understanding how do we integrate the aspect of competitive success with the data that we currently have in the tool. I think one thing about that, I just think that could be really interesting. I guess I'll just leave it there.
We did have additional comments about win-loss rate would be interesting.
Yeah.
So I can keep going. There are more questions.
One thing, diving back to Sean's question, Lynn, Sean, if there are reports or data elements that you can't export that you would like to be able to, reach out to me and I can get things in an Excel spreadsheet for you.
Okay, so Clayton Bissett had a question about, I believe the industry standard for discount rate is tuition only and does not include room and board. Does the tool have the ability to account for that?
Yeah, good question, Clayton. I didn't dive into that specifically. And what we show in Insights is we actually show two different discount rates. There is one that is a COA discount rate. That is a discount rate against full cost of attendance. The discount rate that is just labeled discount rate, so this one here, that is the industry standard tuition only discount rate and does not include room and board. So we actually have both. We built it this way when we initially started because we had some institutions that are very heavy residential campuses and look at it including room and board as well.
Okay. We have another question. Will there be a release association-wide of data for research purposes?
To be determined. We'll be obviously doing some of this internally with our own analysts, but research is a component. Research and analytics is a key component of what we're planning to do moving forward with our strategic planning. When it comes to the ROA pillar, I haven't figured out with Lynn and the rest of our team what that exactly will look like. But yeah, the intent is to release research, finalized research out of the ROA platform. When it comes to releasing just raw data for research purposes, that gets a little more complicated when it comes to the agreements we've made with schools on how we would leverage the data. So that takes another layer of permission. So we haven't gone down that path yet.
Okay, I think that is all for the questions that have been submitted for everyone to hear. I think we've had some individually, Alan, and you and I will connect about that, but that's all I'm seeing so far.
Sure. And I know that we're...
Here we go, one more.
Okay.
Just to clarify, does the standard discount rate include tuition and fees or tuition only? Just another clarification.
Okay, another clarification. BJ, it is tuition and fees. We collect tuition and fees as a lump number, and so it is the tuition and fees number.
Okay, so now I have a question from Patrick Atwell.
Okay.
So one question. If a school does travel study, does the cost of attendance go up for the student? So for the example, a $5,000 trip and school provides a $2,000 travel scholarship, does the COA go up to $5,000 while the awarded aid goes up to $2,000?
So what's calculated on these screens is showing it's based on what that student's actual cost of attendance is based on what you reported to us. So in your example, if I'm understanding it correctly, Pat, is that this student's cost of attendance would increase that $5,000, and their aid would also go up that equivalent $5,000. So you would see that reflected. So if you've got a large number of students that do this type of travel, you could see, based on how we calculate within the tool, it could slightly inflate your discount rate, I guess, is my response to that. Because you're going to see, well, it may or may not, depending on how much aid versus how much their cost of attendance go up, but you could see that. Does that help, Pat? I hope that's helpful. If not, let's connect offline and we'll talk about that. I know you and I have had a few different conversations about some of the unique things that happen at Culver Stockton, and I love those conversations personally, and I enjoy learning about the uniqueness of each of our institutions.
Alan, there were a lot of great questions today and a lot of interaction. I think that's it, other than people saying great job and thank you. Great information.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for attending. I didn't look very closely, but we probably have more people in this session than Jim's State of the Association. So Jim, if you're on the call, I'd probably win. I thank you for your time. I am happy to do this type of demo for you and your campus administrators. I've done it for a number of different schools, and I enjoy speaking with athletic directors and presidents and others about this, and just reach out to me via email and we'll set something up. I'm happy to spend half an hour with your campus if you'd like me to, or more. All right. I think we've got the awards session here coming up in a little bit, and enjoy the rest of convention. And it's good to see everybody, even if it's virtually. Take care, all.